How do they do it? Why do they do it? Riding and crashing and riding and winning and always faster and faster.
Welcome back everybody to With Anto MotoGP. This is the channel that talks everything about MotoGP. And today it's more of a casual Friday chat in the new studio. And if you're new to the channel, I want to say welcome and it's great to have you along. Now, I want to talk about 2027, but not in the usual silly season way. Everybody at the moment's talking about Fabio to Honda, Jorge Martin to Yamaha and Acosta to Ducati. But I think we're missing the big picture here, and that's what we want to get in today. Because 2027 isn't just riders moving from one team to another, it's new bikes, new tyres and new rules coming. Now look, the current rumour mill's on fire. Marc Marquez to stay at Ducati. I think it sounds like it's fair. Fabio off to HRC. Look, for me it makes sense. That's a big European offer. It's 15 million euros. Only Fabio can get more money than he's currently on. Jorge Martin's supposed to be going to Yamaha. You know, Yamaha's still selling the strong belief. Strong tyres with Pramac. Acosta, Ducati, sounds obvious, but you know, well, let's wait and see. And this Bagnaia to Aprilia or Bagnaia to VR46. All of this makes logical sense until you ask one big question. And that question I really want to get into today is, what are these riders actually signing up to ride? Now, what bike are they going to get on? That's what I want to talk about. Now, we're coming up in 27 to the great big 850cc reset, which means less power, more precision on how we're going to ride, less aero, so less downforce on the front. Front field's going to become critical, no ride height, so we need riders that can use the throttle, the clutch, and move their body around and control the bike. We might even see the bikes popping some wheelies for a change. But this is going to favour the manufacturers who have got engineering depth, great chassis technology and philosophy, and the ability to simulate, not just on the track, but you know, off the track in their remote garages or where they actually sit. And most of all, what it's going to reward, is rider talent. Now, the real wild card in this whole thing is Pirelli tyres. Pirelli are coming in with, now they're talking about reintroducing qualifying tyres, which I think is quite exciting, and more extreme or extra selections in the front tyres. The Pirelli's been known to be able to squish down. So that's going to change how the bike's geometry works, the confidence of the riders going into the corners, and it's going to start to match up one lap brilliance versus race balance. If you're on qualifiers versus what tyre. Now look, here's one thing for sure. Someone's going to get this wrong. Let's go back to 2007, the 800cc's. Honda got it wrong. Who got it right? And someone's going to get it right this time. But Ducati got it right in 2007 with a guy called Casey Stoner. Now, one of the things that's been overlooked is World Superbike experience on Pirelli. And Ducati, Honda and Yamaha, they're running in the World Superbike programs. And that means they've got years of data. I know we can't compare directly, but we can talk about Pirelli tyres, front wheel characteristics. They also will know a little bit, those factories, about how the tyres degrade, what the pressure, tyre pressure windows are going to be. Pirelli's talking about a higher PSI and what the construction of the sidewalls are. Now, on the flip side, Aprilia and KTM don't have experience in the World Superbikes. They don't have a Pirelli background, so they're starting pretty well from zero. So this might be the first time, actually, maybe ever, if Superbike knowledge was going to actually start to matter in MotoGP. Now look, the other thing we're going to talk about is the talent pipeline. Maybe not quite so important, but Moto2. Now, they're already racing on Pirellis in Moto2, so, you know, Alonso, Holgado, these guys are talking about maybe coming through. They're already learning the Ducati behaviour, they're understanding the feel, the limits, what it can do, what it can't do, how aggressive to be under braking. So in fact, you know, one of the things that might happen is that the rookies in 27 might adapt a bit faster than the current stars, maybe. Who knows? But, you know, the Michelin advantage, it's going to be a disadvantage. We're going to see that with Toprak this year and see how he actually goes. So, because he's changing, he's going the other way, then he's got to go back. So 2027, they are going to be very interesting for the rookies and for the champions. But I want to talk a little bit more about what's going to happen for 2027. Now, budgets matter. Factories with budgets matter. Those who have got research and development budgets, those who can long-term plan, and those who have got multiple teams feeding in data, they're going to win. Now, factories will be relying heavily on this idea of digital twins. They make a digital copy of the bike and a digital copy of the track, and they race them around. Virtual bikes on virtual tracks. And remote garages start to run these simulations. Now, I believe this is already happening, but this will continue to happen. So look, it hasn't happened for a while, but development's not just track-based anymore. It's going to happen in the data centers, in the remote garages, and then let the supercomputers and AI work it out. Okay, so who's best placed for the 850s? So if we strip away all of the rumors, the talk, what's going on, who's going to build the best 850cc, learn the Pirelli tyres the fastest? Well, there's one factory that's probably way ahead, and that's Honda. The biggest factory with the biggest budget, not just in rebuilding the bike, but the entire development ecosystem. The factory HRC and LCR teams won't be enough. As I've mentioned in an early episode, there's rumours of expansion. HRC are approaching Trackhouse. Gunther Steiner has been linked with HRC. More bikes, more data, faster learning. And history will show that the strongest testing and the strongest structure in MotoGP normally wins. And like I said, they're going to be working heavily in this remote digital twin and working towards developing these bikes. If anyone can brute force a reset, it's got to be Honda. Honda's not going to stay down forever. They may need to get 6 to 8 riders signed. If you think about it, they get all those teams on the grid, and that just means maybe Fabio's the first step. Now, Ducati, they're still the benchmark for modern MotoGP development in my mind. They've mastered the Michelins and they're adaptable. Gigi Dall'Igna, he's elite at exploiting regulation holes or changes. He's got the best data flow and the best data gathering on the grid. Plus, they've got Bulliger from World Superbike testing the 850 with deep Pirelli front knowledge and rear. You know, Ducati aren't going to guess. They're going to test and reiterate and iterate. That's how they're going to work. They're not going to disappear, Ducati, for the 850s, but they might be a little bit more catchable. And think about it. They've already got Marc Marquez signed. So they're a long way forward. Now look, Yamaha, well, they're quiet, but they're important in terms of what they're doing. I don't think the Fabio thing, rumour, if it's true, is going to hurt them. This whole V4 is about the 850 era. They're not so worried. They wouldn't have changed for this year if they weren't focusing on the future. Pirelli tyres and the testing to get that bike ahead. Now, their wild card and where they could get ahead of everybody is Toprak, ex-World Superbike champion, Pirelli front wheel tyre king. He's an elite rider and he's ideal for development. You know, Yamaha's testing isn't the strongest if you look at it, but with Toprak, that might be massive to them and they can accelerate their Pirelli learning. Now, look, KTM. Look, they've got an extreme testing culture. They're good. They've got Danny Pedrosa riding, Espargaro riding as well. They've got a strong team, but no real Pirelli experience. And they've got budget pressure. They're up against, no one can go up against Honda. Nobody. But, you know, for KTM, they've got a problem. They're brilliant racers, but 2027, I think, excuse me, is going to reward engineers more than racers. You know, KTM might survive early, they might survive, but then again, it might be dangerous if they actually get bought out. Of course, Steiner's talking about buying the whole lot. We'll talk about that in another episode. Now, Aprilia, smart and efficient engineering. They've got a great engineering team, but the problems for 27, Small budgets, limited testing bandwidth, no Pirelli background, and the reset's really going to hurt them. They can't afford to get it wrong at all. If they get it wrong, I don't think that they can recover. They don't have the Honda or Ducati style of numbers, support, and teams to recover. Look, they've only got, when Jorge Martin's injured, there's no one to ride the bike. Anyway, that's another topic. Now, it brings it back to the riders. Okay, let's talk riders at the end here. Some riders, 2027 is all about money and brand. Others are going to look at the engineering structure, the simulation strength, the tyres, and who and how they can understand it. And if you choose wrong, your career could be over. It's as simple as that. So I think the riders are going to follow one of two ways. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys, if you're a rider out there, who do you trust? Who's going to make the best 850 that's going to work with the Pirellis? And which factory do you think is going to get it right, and which factory is going to get it wrong? And do you think the Moto2 rookies, I should say, might surprise everybody in 27? Anyway, just a bit of a casual chat here on with Anton MotoGP on Friday. I hope you've enjoyed it. Look, if you've enjoyed it, I'd love a thumbs up. If you like this style, then let me know. If not, you know, that's fine. And we can work around what we're trying to do. Now, they're on the track right now, the shakedown, and then we've got the actual first test. I'm heading across to KL, so we'll be able to see what this whole launch looks like, and we'll go from there. So give us a thumbs up, a subscription if you're new, and drop your comments below. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. Okay, it's been a pleasure. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.